My stepson's lawyer claimed I promised him my $1.2 million house, but they forgot I was a retired judge. The process server handed me the envelope at my front door. Robert Sullivan, you've been served. I took the papers, confused. Served? I'd been a Superior Court judge for 30 years. I knew what a lawsuit looked like, but I'd been retired for 5 years. Who would sue me? I opened the envelope. Complaint for specific performance of oral contract. Plaintiff, Kevin Martin. Defendant, Robert Sullivan. Claim, enforcement of oral promise to transfer real property. I read the complaint 3 times. Kevin Martin, my late wife's son, my stepson for 12 years. He was suing me, claiming I promised to give him my house, a $1.2 million property in San Marino, in an oral contract made at his mother's funeral 3 years ago. According to the complaint, I told him, "Don't worry about the house, Kevin. When I'm gone, it's yours." And now, with a lawyer named Amanda Price, he was suing for specific performance, demanding I transfer the deed to him immediately. I sat down in my living room and tried to process it. I'd never promised Kevin anything. We'd barely spoken at the funeral. He'd shown up late, left early, and ignored most of the family. This was fraud, and I was going to prove it, because Kevin and his lawyer had made one critical mistake. They forgot I'd spent 30 years on the bench dealing with exactly this kind of case. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a story about standing up for what's right. Part 1. The background. My name was Robert Sullivan. I was 70 years old, and I'd served as a Los Angeles Superior Court judge from 1990 to 2020. Civil Division. I presided over thousands of cases, contract disputes, property claims, business litigation. I'd seen every scam, every fraudulent claim, every desperate attempt to extract money through the legal system. One of the most common, oral contract claims. Someone claims you verbally promised them money, property, or assets. No written agreement. No witnesses. Just he said, she said. And they sue, hoping you'll settle rather than fight. I dismissed hundreds of those cases over the years. California law is clear. Certain contracts must be in writing to be enforceable. Real estate transfers are one of them. It's called the statute of frauds. You can't enforce an oral promise to transfer real property. Period. Kevin's lawyer should have known that. Any first-year law student would know that, which meant either Amanda Price was incompetent or this was something else. I'd married Kevin's mother, Catherine Martin, in 2009. She was a widow. I was a widower. We'd met at charity fundraiser, fell in love, got married a year later. Catherine had one son from her first marriage, Kevin Martin. He was 33 when we married, already an adult, living on his own. Our relationship was cordial but distant. Kevin came to holidays, called his mother on her birthday, but we never developed a father-son bond. I was his mother's husband, nothing more. Catherine died in 2021 from a sudden heart attack. She was 67. Too young, too sudden. At the funeral, Kevin had been strange, distant. He'd barely acknowledged me, spent most of the service on his phone. I'd been too grief-stricken to care. Catherine's will left everything to me. Her retirement accounts, $150,000, some jewelry, personal items. The house was in my name only. I'd owned it before we married. Kevin inherited nothing from his mother because she'd had nothing to leave. She'd spent her savings on medical bills and living expenses over the years. I'd offered to give Kevin some of Catherine's jewelry and personal items. He declined, said he didn't need anything. That was 3 years ago. Now, he was suing me for my house. I called my lawyer, James Rodriguez. We'd been friends for 40 years. He'd practiced law while I sat on the bench. He was one of the best litigators in L.A. "Jim, I've been sued by my stepson. Oral contract claim. He says I promised him my house." "Did you?" "Of course not." "Then this should be easy. California statute of frauds bars oral contracts for real property. I'll file a motion to dismiss and have it thrown out in 30 days. There's something else, Jim. His lawyer is Amanda Price. Do you know her?" Silence on the line. "Jim, Yeah, I know her. She's trouble. Got sanctioned by the state bar 2 years ago for filing frivolous lawsuits. She runs a mill, takes desperate clients, files weak cases, then pressures defendants to settle. She makes money even when she loses. So this is a shakedown. Probably. But Robert, be careful. Amanda's smart. She knows the law. If she's filed this case, she thinks she has something. What could she possibly have? I don't know. Let me read the complaint. I emailed him the lawsuit. 10 minutes later, Jim called back. Robert, this is bad. What do you mean? Amanda claims she has witnesses. 3 people who say they heard you promise Kevin a house at Catherine's funeral. She's also filed a declaration from Kevin describing the conversation in detail. That's a lie. I never said anything like that. I believe you. But if she has 3 witnesses willing to testify, this becomes a credibility battle. And juries can be unpredictable. I felt cold. Who are the witnesses? Let me read. First witness, Diane Foster, Kevin's girlfriend. Second witness, Marcus Webb, Kevin's business partner. Third witness, Linda Cho, a family friend. I recognize the names. Diane had been at the funeral with Kevin. Marcus was someone Kevin worked with. Linda, I vaguely remembered her. A friend of Catherine's. All people with connections to Kevin. All people who might lie for him. Jim, this is fraud. Kevin's manufacturing witnesses. Probably, but we need to prove it. Can you remember what you actually said at the funeral? I closed my eyes. Tried to remember. The funeral had been a blur. Grief. Exhaustion. A receiving line of people offering condolences. Had Kevin approached me? Had we spoken? I couldn't remember. Jim, I don't know. It was 3 years ago. I was devastated. I might have said something polite, but I definitely didn't promise in my house. We need evidence. Did anyone record the funeral? I don't think so. Did you keep any documents? Guest book? Programs? Maybe. I'll check. After we hung up, I went to my study and pulled out a box labeled Catherine Funeral. Inside, the guest book, the program, sympathy cards, a memory book the funeral home had provided, and at the bottom, a USB drive. I'd forgotten about it. Catherine's nephew Daniel had made a video montage for the funeral. Photos of Catherine set to music. He'd given me the USB drive afterward. I plugged it into my computer. The video played. Photos of Catherine, her childhood, our wedding, vacations, holidays. Then, at the end, raw footage from the funeral service. Daniel must have recorded it for the family. I watched the entire video. 90 minutes of funeral service, eulogies, and a reception afterward. And there, at the 78-minute mark, Kevin approaching me in the church hall. The audio was faint but audible. Kevin, so, what happens to the house? Me, what do you mean? Kevin, Mom's house. Are you selling it? Me, Kevin, your mother and I live there together. It's my house. I'm not selling it. Kevin, right, but when you're gone, eventually? Me, I haven't thought about it. Kevin, well, I just thought. I'm her son. It should probably come to me, right? Me, Kevin, we can talk about estate planning later. Today is about your mother. Kevin, sure. I'm just saying, family should take care of family. Me, we'll talk later. And that was it. The entire conversation. 45 seconds. I never promised him a house. I never said, it's yours. I said, we'll talk later. A polite brush off because I didn't want to discuss estate planning at a funeral. Kevin had twisted a polite dismissal into a legally binding promise. I called Jim immediately. I found the funeral video. Kevin lied. I never promised him anything. Part 2. The depositions. Jim filed a motion to dismiss the lawsuit based on California statute of frauds. Amanda Price opposed it, arguing that part performance and detrimental reliance created an exception. Bullshit legal theories, but enough to survive a motion to dismiss. The case moved to discovery. Jim scheduled depositions. Kevin first, then his 3 witnesses. Kevin's deposition was held in Jim's office. Kevin showed up with Amanda Price. He looked nervous. Jim started with background questions. How long had Kevin known me? What was our relationship like? When did we last speak before the lawsuit? Kevin's answers were careful, rehearsed. Then Jim got to the funeral. Mr. Martin, you claim Mr. Sullivan promised to give you his house. Is that correct? Yes. When did this conversation take place? At my mother's funeral, in the church hall, after the service. Who else was present? Diane Foster, my girlfriend, Marcus Webb, my business associate, and Linda Cho, a family friend. And what exactly did Mr. Sullivan say? Kevin recited a story. He put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't worry about the house, Kevin. When I'm gone, it's yours. Your mother would have wanted you to have it." Those exact words? Yes. How do you remember the exact words 3 years later? Kevin hesitated. Because it was important. It was about my mother. I remember. Jim nodded. And after that conversation, did you and Mr. Sullivan discuss the house again? No. He's been avoiding me. Have you tried to contact him? A few times. He doesn't respond. Did you send emails? Text messages? Maybe some texts. Do you still have those texts? Kevin glanced at Amanda. She leaned forward. We're not required to produce texts unless they're relevant. Jim smiled. They're very relevant. I'll subpoena his phone records. The deposition ended. Next was Diane Foster, Kevin's girlfriend. She was 38, worked as a dental hygienist. Nervous. Kept looking at Amanda for guidance. Jim asked her to describe what she heard at the funeral. I heard Robert tell Kevin that the house would be his. What were his exact words? He said, "The house is yours when I'm gone." Those exact words? Yes. And where were you standing? Next to Kevin. How far from Mr. Sullivan? Maybe 3 feet? And what were you doing? Just standing there. Were you listening to their conversation? Yes. Why? Diane blinked. What? Why were you listening? Were you part of the conversation? No, but I was with Kevin, so you were eavesdropping? I wasn't eavesdropping. I was just there. Jim pulled out a document. Ms. Foster, I have Kevin's phone records. On the day of the funeral, Kevin sent you a text message at 10:47 a.m. It says, "Stay close to me when I talk to Robert. Need you to hear what he says." Did you receive that text? Diane's face went pale. I don't remember. But you did stay close to Kevin when he talked to Robert, correct? Yes. Because Kevin asked you to be a witness? Amanda interrupted. Objection. Speculation. Jim ignored her. Ms. Foster, did Kevin tell you what to say in your witness statement? No. I heard what I heard. Did Kevin pay you? What? No. Did he offer you anything in exchange for your testimony? No. Jim showed her another document. This is a bank transfer from Kevin's account to yours. $5,000. Dated 3 days before you signed your witness declaration. What was that payment for? Diane looked at Amanda. Kevin lent me money. For personal reasons. What personal reasons? That's private. Ms. Foster, you're under oath. What was the $5,000 for? She didn't answer. The next deposition was Marcus Webb, Kevin's business partner. Marcus was 48, overweight, sweating in an ill-fitting suit. Jim asked him the same questions. Marcus's story was similar, but not identical to Diane's. Different words, different details. Mr. Webb, you say you heard Robert promise Kevin the house. Where were you standing? Behind Kevin, maybe 5 feet away. And you heard Robert clearly? Yes. What were his exact words? He said, "Don't worry, Kevin. The house will be yours." Jim pulled out a transcript of Diane's testimony. Ms. Foster said Robert said, "The house is yours when I'm gone." Your version is different, which is correct. Marcus hesitated. They're both right. He said both things. He said 2 different sentences promising the house? Yes, but Kevin didn't mention the second sentence in his deposition. Why not? I don't know. Jim leaned forward. Mr. Webb, what's your financial relationship with Kevin? We're business partners. In what business? Real estate investment. How's that business doing? Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Fine. Jim slid a document across the table. This is your company's bankruptcy filing. Chapter 7. Filed 8 months ago. You lost everything, didn't you? Marcus didn't answer. Kevin promised you money if you testified, didn't he? No. Mr. Webb, perjury is a crime. If you lie under oath. I'm not lying. But his voice cracked. The final deposition was Linda Cho. Linda was 62, a friend of Catherine from church. Quiet, polite. Jim asked her to describe what she heard. I heard Robert tell Kevin that he'd inherit the house. What were his exact words? Something about the house going to Kevin eventually. Something about? Or exact words? I don't remember the exact words. It was 3 years ago. But you're certain he promised Kevin a house? Yes. How are you certain if you don't remember his exact words? Linda hesitated. I know what I heard. Jim pulled out a photo from the funeral. Mrs. Cho, this is a photo from the funeral reception. This timestamp shows 3:15 p.m., the time Kevin says a conversation happened. Can you identify yourself in this photo? Linda looked at the photo. I'm not in this photo. That's correct. This photo shows the church hall, where Kevin claims a conversation took place. You're not visible. Where were you at 3:15 p.m.? I don't remember. The guest book shows you signed out at 2:47 p.m. You'd already left the funeral when this conversation allegedly happened. So how did you hear it? Linda's face crumbled. Kevin told me what happened. So you didn't actually hear the conversation? No, but you signed a declaration saying you did. Kevin asked me to help. He said his stepfather was being unfair. So you committed perjury. Linda started crying. I'm sorry. I just wanted to help Kevin. He said his mother would have wanted him to have the house. The depositions were devastating. 3 witnesses, 3 contradictory stories, and clear evidence of coordination and lies. Part 3. The evidence. Jim filed a motion for summary judgment. In legal terms, Your Honor, there's no case here. Kevin's witnesses lied. I can prove it. He attached the funeral video showing the actual conversation, no promise. Kevin's text messages to Diane asking her to stay close as a witness. The $5,000 payment to Diane. Marcus Webb's bankruptcy, showing financial desperation. Linda Cho's admission that she wasn't present and lied. Amanda Price opposed the motion. She argued the video was incomplete and didn't capture everything. Judge Raymond Foster scheduled a hearing. The courtroom was the same one I presided in for 15 years. Seeing from the other side, as a defendant, was surreal. Judge Foster was younger than me, maybe 55. I'd mentored him when he was a new judge. He recognized me immediately. Mr. Sullivan, it's good to see you, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Thank you, Your Honor. Amanda Price stood. Your Honor, this case presents a classic oral contract dispute. My client reasonably relied on Mr. Sullivan's promise. Judge Foster interrupted. Ms. Price, California statute of frauds prohibits oral contracts for real property. You know that. Yes, Your Honor, but there are exceptions. Part performance. Detrimental reliance. What performance? What reliance? Your client didn't do anything in reliance on the alleged promise. Amanda pulled out a document. Your Honor, Kevin Martin made financial decisions based on his stepfather's promise. He declined other housing opportunities. He planned his financial future around eventually owning this property. Jim stood. Your Honor, that's not in the record. Kevin's deposition said nothing about declining opportunities. Ms. Price is making this up. Judge Foster looked at Amanda. Is that in your client's deposition? Amanda hesitated. It's in his supplemental declaration. Filed when? Yesterday. After discovery closed? Your Honor, new evidence. Ms. Price, you can't manufacture evidence after discovery closes. Motion denied on that point. Jim pulled out the funeral video. Your Honor, may I show the video? Judge Foster nodded. The courtroom lights dimmed. The video played. You could hear my conversation with Kevin clearly. Kevin, so, what happens to the house? Me, what do you mean? Kevin, Mom's house. Are you selling it? Me. Kevin, your mother and I live there together. It's my house. I'm not selling it. Kevin, right, but when you're gone, eventually. Me, I haven't thought about it. Kevin, well, I just thought. I'm her son. It should probably come to me, right? Me. Kevin, we can talk about estate planning later. Today's about your mother. Kevin, sure. I'm just saying, family should take care of family. Me, we'll talk later. The video ended. Judge Foster looked at Amanda. Ms. Price, where's the promise? Your Honor, we'll talk later, implies. It implies nothing. We'll talk later is not a promise to transfer real property. Jim stood. Your Honor, I'd also like to note the perjury committed by Kevin's witnesses. Linda Cho admitted she wasn't even present. Diane Foster was paid $5,000. Marcus Webb changed his story 3 times. This isn't a legitimate contract dispute. It's fraud. Judge Foster reviewed the deposition transcripts. Ms. Price, do you have anything else? Amanda looked at Kevin. He shook his head. No, Your Honor. Judge Foster put down his pen. I'm granting the motion for summary judgment. The statute of frauds bars oral contracts for real property. Mr. Sullivan's statement, we'll talk later, is not a promise to transfer property. The plaintiff's witnesses lacked credibility and provided contradictory testimony. Case dismissed. He turned to Kevin and Amanda. Furthermore, I'm sanctioning both the plaintiff and his attorney. This lawsuit was frivolous and filed in bad faith. I'm ordering Kevin Martin to pay $50,000 in attorney's fees to Mr. Sullivan, and I'm referring Ms. Price to the State Bar for filing a lawsuit based on perjured testimony. Amanda's face went white. Your Honor, we're done, Ms. Price. Kevin stood, face red, pointing at me. You promised. My mother wanted me to have that house. Judge Foster's voice was ice. Mr. Martin, your mother left you nothing because she had nothing to leave. Mr. Sullivan owes you nothing. You fabricated this claim, suborned perjury, and wasted this court's time. If you continue, I'll hold you in contempt. Sit down. Kevin sat. I walked out of the courtroom. 30 years on the bench. I dismissed hundreds of cases like this, but experiencing it as a defendant was different. Part 4. The Aftermath. 2 weeks later, Kevin's $50,000 sanction came due. He couldn't pay. I could have pursued collection, wage garnishment, asset seizure. I didn't. I'd won. That was enough. Amanda Price was investigated by the State Bar. 6 months later, she was suspended from practicing law for 2 years for filing frivolous lawsuits based on fabricated evidence. Kevin sent me a letter a month after the trial. Robert, I know you won't believe me, but I actually thought you'd promise me the house. Amanda convinced me I had a case. She said we'd win. I was desperate. My business failed. I'm $300,000 in debt. I thought if I could get the house, I could sell it and start over. I'm sorry for lying. I'm sorry for dragging you through this. Catherine loved you. She'd be ashamed of what I did. Kevin, I read the letter twice. Then I filed it away. Kevin was right about one thing. Catherine would have been ashamed. She'd raise him better than this. But somewhere along the way, desperation and greed had turned him into someone who'd lie under oath to steal from family. 1 year after the lawsuit, I donated $100,000 to the LA County Bar Association's program for pro bono legal services. Too many people can't afford lawyers when they're sued frivolously. I also volunteered to teach a class for new judges, identifying fraudulent claims. On the first day, I told them Kevin's story. This is what desperation looks like. A man with nothing creates a false claim, finds a shady lawyer, manufactures witnesses, and hopes you won't look too closely. Your job is to see through it. Ask questions. Demand evidence. protect the innocent from people who weaponize the legal system. 30 years on the bench taught me one lesson. The law is a tool. In honest hands, it protects the vulnerable and enforces justice. In dishonest hands, it becomes a weapon to threaten, extort, and steal. Kevin tried to use the law as a weapon against me. He forgot I'd spent 3 decades learning how that weapon works. And in the end, that made all the difference.